Liar, a book by W.P. Thrift, read by name redacted, Chapter 7, Dream Girl. Work went by in a haze that day. Larry tried to avoid being alone for too long, as he'd been stuck in his apartment and trapped in his own head for a couple weeks now, and really needed to get out and remember what it was like to exist in the world again. Unfortunately, he'd been moved into the office in his absence. They needed his cubicle for the replacement for his old job, so someone at the office had been assigned to move all of his stuff into his new office while he was gone. While everyone had originally been sympathetic to him losing his mother, and that being why he was out, rumors had begun to spread that he hadn't lost his mother after all. It was a pretty cruel thing to try and garner such unwarranted sympathies. This left Larry isolated from his coworkers, as everyone wanted to ask him about this, but nobody had the nerve to actually say the words. That meant socializing at lunch was out. That meant hanging around all day at the water cooler, just shooting the breeze was out. The water cooler, where everyone went to gossip, it transformed from his favorite hangout at work to a place he dreaded to catch a glimpse of as he walked from his office to the bathroom, passing right by the hall the water cooler was at while doing so. There were always people gathered around it, and they would always grow quiet when he walked past, their eyes following him. He was alienated from them now. He could feel it. In this reality, I faked my mom's death for insurance fraud purposes, Larry thought. Of course everyone would hate me after that. There was no telling how they found out. That was supposed to be confidential between him and the insurance company. But then hearing he was out for his mom's funeral and then anyone finding out she was alive, even if they never found out about the fraud, clearly he had told a hell of a lie. If anyone asks, I could say my mother-in-law died. Wait, was Cynthia and I actually married or just a couple? Also, would it be cruel to write her mom out of reality like that? Does she even have a mom? How much of her life is fictional? Was Cynthia ever a real person, or is she entirely fictitious, wished into existence? How much of her family line came into existence when she appeared? What's the ethics of wishing her mom out of existence if she may not even exist prior to me creating her just to kill her? He stayed in his office for as long as he could that day, emerging only when absolutely necessary. He was cut off from the rest of the world once more. This life felt more foreign to him than his fake life, which had just been wished into existence yesterday. Trying to occupy his mind by getting work done, he spent all day just recollecting what he'd been doing the last time he was in the office. It was slow going. It felt like a lifetime ago that he'd actually worked last. In the over a decade he'd been working here, he'd never taken 2 weeks off before. He took 1 or 2 days off a year tops, save 1 year he took a full week off to nurse a bad cold. He never went on vacation. He never took a trip just to get away from it all or whatever normal people do. He just arrived at his cubicle, sat down, and started filling out reports. That was his life, and he knew if he worked hard he could move up the corporate ladder. Years and years later, that hard work paid off. And this was his reward, an office of his very own which separated him from everyone else and felt like his own personal coffin. But with his huge pay raise, he was moving up in the world from lower middle class to slightly over lower middle class. Larry stared at his glowing computer monitor in his brightly lit office, then glanced over at the glass wall which boxed him in here. He could clearly see out into the entire rest of his floor. He could see his old cubicle from here. Some new guy sat in his old chair now. Opening the drawer to find a pen to click nervously, he found no pens. He glanced down and saw how haphazardly the people that had moved him into this room had poured his old stuff into the drawers with barely any thought or care to what went where. He had no idea where his stuff was. Spending a good 30 minutes trying to find a pen, he glanced up and could swear that all eyes were on him. But no, everyone was looking down, working. Nobody was watching him. He tried to swallow, but his throat was dry. He could really go for a quick trip to the water cooler right now, but the way everyone stared at him just creeped him out. There was just no way for him to know how much they knew about him now, and he had no idea what to tell them to make everything be okay again. Not like he had any real friends here. He considered every single coworker to be an acquaintance, even the ones he knew all about, having heard about them and their families and their lives and struggles and accomplishments over the past many years. He'd heard all kinds of stories from them, but he'd never felt close to them, not a single one of them. Yet it still hurt to think that nobody here seemed to want to talk to him anymore. Larry was very much the type to enjoy hermiting himself away, but humans were still social animals, and nobody could isolate themselves forever. To an introvert like Larry, social interaction was like a whale breaching the surface of the ocean to breath before diving back down into the depths of his own isolation, where he could actually feel comfortable, staying away from the surface of the world for as long as possible, right up until the moment he was about to suffocate and absolutely had to come up for air. It was only 1 p.m. His lunch had been a sandwich from the break room and a bag of chips from the vending machine, which he did actually have change for today. He ate alone in his office. Lunch didn't burn nearly enough time for him. Time was dragging on so slowly. He pulled out his flip phone and stared at it a bit. Given he didn't have a contacts list, his options of who to call was limited. He could only call one of the 3 numbers he had memorized. My sister probably hates me, but now is as good of time as any to start mending our relationship. He dialed her number, and after a couple rings she picked up, sounding cheerful as she said, "Hey bro, what's up?" He didn't expect that at all. She sounded happy to hear from him. The last time she was here, he only saw the side of her that had been shattered by their mom's passing. But right now she sounded like the Kim he actually knew, the unshakably happy sister that had driven him mad during their adolescence, never giving him any peace, never leaving him alone. She tried so hard to make him her close friend, and he just yelled for her to get out of his room. Today he entirely regrets that. If he could do it over again, he'd have been much nicer to her. That was something he realized long ago, though. No new revelation there. "Kim, you sound chipper," Larry said. "Last time I saw you, you were. Not quite as well." "What? When did we even see each other last? It must have been some Christmas forever ago when I flew down last, right? Was I sick or something?" Kim asked. "The last time she came down was Christmas?" Larry tried to recall when he saw Kim last before the funeral. It really would have been some family Christmas way back in the day now. Since she moved across the country, she rarely came home. At first she tried to make it down every year, then every other year, then she simply stopped coming to visit entirely. "Kim, you weren't just down 2 weeks ago, were you? When did you speak to Mom last?" "Mom? She called me out of the blue a week ago. Sounded like she was trying to cheer me up, but I don't know why," Kim said. "Why do you ask?" "She has no idea Mom died." "She never came down for the fake funeral?" "Of course, if Mom's death was faked, she never would have been called to come see her in hospice. And the insurance guy, it's his interpretation of events that created that new reality, right? Then he probably assumed I kept Mom's fake funeral as much a secret from people that knew her best so I could get away with it more easily." Tremendous relief washed over Larry when he realized his sister didn't actually hate him in this world. "Hey, Kim, we should hang out again sometime," Larry said. "I just got a big promotion. I could actually afford to buy you a plane ticket, you know?" "When did you get a promotion?" He'd never told her about it. Larry began to speak excitedly to her about how his job had been going lately, or at least how it had been going prior to 2 weeks ago. He was so eager to catch up. This was precisely the kind of social banter he needed to get his head back on straight. "Hey, Larry, hold on," Kim interrupted him quickly before he could really get started. "I'm at work right now," I answered since it was you calling, "but if it's not an emergency, could we pick this up later?" "Ah. Oh, sure, I guess," Larry said. "Tonight, maybe?" Actually, I've got to work late today. I don't even know when I'll be going home. We're big into crunch time right now. I'm actually scared I'll end up sleeping under my desk again." "I see. Well, we'll catch up some other time then." She apologized and all, and tried to garner his sympathies. She didn't need to. He knew how demanding her job could be when approaching a huge deadline. He assured her he understood it was all okay. The call ended. Larry was alone with his thoughts again. The walk home was long and arduous that day. Larry was somehow still tired from all the extra walking he'd done this morning, a testament to how out of shape he truly was. At least he had Mike to look forward to seeing. Even if nobody else would talk to him, Mike would. A lady wearing a blindingly red dress caught his eye and ripped him straight out of the mental well he'd fallen down. She was an older lady, wearing far too much makeup, thick dark blue eyeliner, lips as red as her dress, and bright shiny pink cheeks from rouge, yet somehow that look perfectly worked for her. She wore a wide-brimmed hat with a feather rising up from it, and a corsage bound one of the arm straps of her dress together. She was too much, far too much. like a 1940s Hollywood actress's idea of what a drop-dead knockout would look like. She was sitting at a steel wire-framed table at an outdoor cafe, her table close to the gate which ran alongside the sidewalk. She looked up at Larry, and he averted his gaze immediately, not wanting her to notice he was staring at her. He kept on going, his heart pounding as he drew within mere feet of her. From where she was sitting, she was far too close to him as he started to pass by. "Larry, don't you dare ignore me," the lady said with a deep yet silky voice. The words reverberated inside his skull. It took him far too long to grasp the fact that she had actually just spoken to him. She had actually just called him out, by name. Freezing, he slowly turned to look back at her. The people behind him on the sidewalk cursed loudly as he had just broken up the flow of pedestrian traffic. "Can I help you?" Larry asked her. "Playing coy isn't becoming of you, love," she said to him. She turned her head to look back at him, a long cigarette holder in one hand ending in a Virginia Slim which she had just lit. She took a long drag from it while staring back at him with a single piercing green eye, the other eye masked by jet-black hair which obscured half her face. "What in the hell is going on?" Larry asked himself. "Nobody that looks like that would ever give someone like me the time of day." Foot traffic continued to curse at him, so he did his best to shove through everyone and reach the entrance to the cafe so that he could step inside the outdoor seating area and step over to where this lady was. On the way over, a thought had dawned on him, so by the time he took a seat in front of her, he was ready to make a guess. "Cynthia, I presume?" "I'm flattered you still remember me," she said in a not at all amused voice. "I knew it. Someone like this isn't real. Cynthia was 100% dreamed up by the park lady. Teresa, did you seriously imagine someone like me hooking up with someone like this?" "Well, what do you want? Are you following me?" Larry asked her. "Am I not free to enjoy an afternoon beverage wherever I might please?" Cynthia asked. Sure. Listen, lady, I've been meaning to ask you something, but I kind of lost your number, so I haven't been able to call." He could see her hand twitch ever so slightly when he said he'd been wanting to ask her something, the hand which still held the long black cigarette holder, which looked ridiculously cartoonishly long given the long thin cigarette it ended with. She took another long drag from it, exhaled the smoke towards him, and gave him a very sly smile with lips that seemed impossibly long. She reached over and pulled a napkin out of the napkin holder and placed it down on the wire table in front of her, the table which stood between the two of them now, and reached up, grabbed the feather out of her hat. The feather, it turned out, was also a pen, as she wrote her number down on the napkin before returning the feather to her hat and then neatly folding the napkin and sliding it over to Larry. "You wish to start over from the very beginning," Cynthia evaluated, "asking a girl her number over coffee. There are worse ways for you to have approached this situation. I applaud your boldness." There was no coffee at the table. Neither one of them had ordered. She doesn't get it at all, Larry thought. Yikes, how should I even approach this? Should I make small talk? How's life at the mansion treating you? No, let's just get to the point. Right, so actually I was going to ask you to take Daniel, Larry said. Cynthia's smile faded into a curt glare. Larry knew this wasn't going to be easy, but he persisted. "I don't have room for him at my place. I don't even have a car. There's no way I'm equipped to raise a kid. You have money. You have a mansion. Just take him. If you don't feel like raising him, hire a nanny to do it for you. Easy, right?" "Your words sting," Cynthia said in a low voice, then took another drag of her cig. After exhaling, she gave him a curious look. "You fought with all the grit of a matador to keep Daniel when our little foray into romance ended. What happened to that man? The one who showed passion for the world?" "He never existed. You're just imagining things." Perhaps I merely see a better version of you than you even realize exists. I shan't humor your abhorrent notion that Daniel belongs with anyone other than you. I'll speak to you another day, when your melancholy has ceased and you've regained your senses." "No, Cynthia, look." "Good day, Larry," she said with such sharp finality that Larry's mouth snapped shut immediately. Cynthia left the outdoor coffee shop and tried to vanish within the crowd. It was impossible. She stood out like a lighthouse beacon through the fog. She could never hide herself, not dressed like that. Larry sat and watched her walk off, not getting up until she was gone. An estranged lover attempting to reconnect at an arguably romantic coffee shop. Such a chance encounter would never happen in real life. Oh, this has to be part of Teresa's vision for what my life must be like. That lie didn't just create a family for me, it transformed my entire world. Larry didn't find that thought frightening, but rather merely something to be a bit curious about. How else might his reality continue to shift? He checked his watch. It was 5:45, and he wasn't even halfway home yet. Ugh, she's caused me to be late, Larry groaned. Are you ready to order, sir? A guy with a notepad had appeared beside him. Nah, changed my mind. Maybe another day, Larry told him, getting up and walking away before he was yelled at for loitering. Cynthia had long disappeared by this point anyway, so there was no fear he'd run into her again today just by chance. He made sure he'd pocketed her number before walking off, knowing he'd need it again when he called her up to come and pick up Daniel. He hadn't given up trying to get rid of that kid. First, deal with this whole family issue, then get back to dealing with the insurance fraud thing, then get a new phone, and finally, my life can just be normal again. When all that's taken care of, I can just tell someone that I don't have any special powers at all, which of course they believe, and that should shut off this power I have for good. He'd made up his mind. He wanted to keep his power just until he'd used it to fix everything, and then he would do away with it for good so it couldn't cause him any more trouble.